Welcome to ESG Decoded, where we navigate the evolving landscape of environmental, social, and governance, ESG. Join me, Amanda Shea, and Erika Schiller as we explore the intersection of sustainability, innovation, and ethical leadership.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to ESG Decoded. I'm your host, Erika Schiller, and today I am joined by my co-host, Amanda Kuhl. And Amanda is joining me to talk a little bit about some stats about ESG Decoded this year that we thought was fun to share with our listeners, and share an announcement about a new host that's joining our team. So first, I'll hand off to Amanda to talk to us about what we have learned about our footprint and our listeners around the globe.
Hey, Erika. It's nice to be on a pod with you.
Likewise.
Most of the time we're interviewing other guests and we don't get to talk to each other that much. What I wanted to share was kind of something just fun, lighthearted for the holidays. It's our 2024 Spotify Wrap results. And we shared it on social, but some fun things that I'm really proud of, especially with this podcast being 3 years old already, is 89% more new listeners. That's really impressive to me. I expect that maybe in a first year podcast, but to have that growth and year 3 is awesome. We have 45% more followers, and we have listeners in 56 different countries around the world, which is pretty cool.
Wow. Very cool.
And along that thought, we are very excited with a special announcement, as you mentioned, because we are not satisfied with 56 countries around the world. No, we are going for more. Erika, let me pass it to you.
Yeah. This new host you may recognize from some prior podcasts. She has joined us. Anna Stablum is a manager in our Singapore office, and she directs our business development out there and is so attuned to the conversations around sustainability, compliance changes, industrial challenges to reduce emissions, incentives, trading markets. And we loved having her on talking about CORSIA, talking about REDD+, so avoided deforestation projects, and many more topics. So we're excited to learn more from Anna and bring in more topics that represent Asia Pacific, the region she's in, Europe, the region that she's from, and around the globe. So Anna, welcome. We're so glad to have you formally as a new host.
Oh, thanks, guys. Yeah, I'm super excited to be part of ESG Decoded, and I'm looking forward to 2025 and really exploring some of these large topics that you touched on, Erika, that we will be following and trying to interpret for our listeners and bring in interesting guests that we can ask questions, because this is a very tricky landscape. At the same time as it's fun, obviously it's very important because we're talking about climate change and what can be done in order to have a better world, really, for the children and for the grandchildren that we're all expecting, and for the world to move on in a healthy fashion. So super excited to be here. I'm glad to have been asked, and I see it as a major responsibility, of course, to bring interesting topics to the podcast.
We know you're up to the challenge, Anna.
I'm glad to hear.
We're so happy to have you part of the team, the podcast team. Anna, will you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your career? I think everyone's curious. I mean, they've heard your voice before, but they want to know you a little bit more. So,
yeah, thanks, Amanda. I'm not going to go on for too long, but maybe one of the key things that I want to really tell the listeners about is that I love current affairs, right? So I'm one of the people that read everything that I get my hands on, from a cornflakes package to the Financial Times. And I also like traveling. So when I was younger, especially, I wanted to explore the world, different languages, and understand different cultures and really what's going on. So my first job was in journalism. I was at Reuters, and I was so happy with that job. I just loved my job. Not to say that I don't love my current job, but to just be in a newsroom is really exciting. I didn't really have any idea when I got the job what commodities I was going to cover commodities and the London Metal Exchange, and I didn't actually know at all what it was. But I was excited because I knew I would be able to travel with that job and to talk to people and learn. And this is something that I still really, really love. And that's why I'm so happy to be part of the podcast, because it gives me a chance to talk to people out there and that can really share what they are doing and teach us. So it didn't take long, actually, until I discovered how fascinating commodity markets are and how important, for example, the price of oil is. So the impact that these commodities have on people and economies around the world, and how much we depend on these commodities. So, for example, the metals will be really important for the green transition. And I really have been bringing this with me along the entire career about, the understanding the key drivers behind supply and demand and ultimately price. And what is interesting as well that I want to share is, of course, to see how different and how quickly industries change. So when I was beginning my career as a journalist, a lot of these newspapers actually were going bust. They were merging. And as you know, the information started to come for free. So no one was really willing to pay anymore for newspapers, because you could have podcasts like this that are free to listen to. And many of my colleagues from those days are actually not working in media anymore. That industry has truly changed. So while that was going on, I was lucky that I was actually hired by one of my sources at the time. And we were setting up a broking desk where we were basically working with hedge funds and helping them to trade on the London Metal Exchange. And in one way, it might be, you might think that that's a big move, right? Being a journalist and then you're sitting actually behind a trading desk. But ultimately, it's all about this information, what is driving price movements. And of course, you're then, if you're trading or broking, you're trying to capture these moves. But you're still sitting in front of TVs, screens with a lot of flashing headlines, trying to make sense of the world. And again, that's something that I still try to do. And again, appreciate being part of this podcast to really make sense of what is going on out there. And what happens, if a at that point, it was interest to me. If a copper price started to move, it was because maybe a mine had been flooded, or China came out with growth figures that were disappointing. But I also think this is something that I want to bring with us into the world of environmental commodities, because when you've been seeing how prices are really changing behavior of people, so for example, the battery journey has been interesting. First, people thought that nickel will be part of the EV revolution, as we were thinking, so the electric vehicle revolution. But nickel started to price and was really expensive. And basically, battery manufacturers started to then find out that you don't need necessarily nickel in batteries. I think with all that, what I want to really stress, and what my focus will potentially be in many of these episodes, is really the price of carbon, right? The price is important. The price change behaviors. The price will also fuel technological advances, because people, if we have a high price of carbon, people will not be emitting in the way that we are. And I think, again, the price of the European Union's emission trading system started to go to all-time highs, and we saw COP in Glasgow in 2021, and that was basically the time when I then wanted to segue in from metals markets to voluntary carbon markets. And I was really lucky to get the opportunity to help setting up an exchange here in Singapore. And then, as you know, I moved to Climeco, and my current role as business development director out here in Asia. And it's a really exciting market to be in. Asia, Southeast Asia, we're growing as no other region in the world. And again, to be able to bring that into the podcast, I think it's going to be really, really exciting. So yeah, just a quick overview of my journey into commodity markets and what I think is really exciting.
Really appreciate it, Anna. And that was super interesting to share kind of your journey to get here into carbon markets and sustainability. I think Amanda and I were talking about how each of us and many that we work with have had different pathways to get to where we are today in terms of working in sustainability, working in impact, trying to address climate change and find ways to change the behaviors of industry and individuals. Um, Amanda, did you want to share a little bit about how you got into this space?
Sure. I did not have the benefit of studying sustainability in university or college. It just wasn't even a major or minor when I was in school. I majored in finance and business. And you don't know what you don't know as a kid. And you don't even, if I asked my 18-year-old, 19-year-old self, I wouldn't have even known that you can have a career like this, that you can work in this space. So it really wasn't until I was working for IKEA in their purchasing office for North and South America that I learned about corporate sustainability. So this was in my mid to late 20s and early 30s, where they are really a corporate leader in sustainability because they embed sustainability in every function. So even though my title was something related to purchasing, somewhere down one of my job responsibilities was sustainability of our suppliers, the suppliers that I was managing, and also the products that they were producing. And I got to be a part of so many interesting projects, from helping to source more responsible wood, better cotton, also making sure that our suppliers were adhering to our social and environmental code of conduct for our suppliers, and seeing the economic development and revitalizations in small communities was just so impactful. I'm getting goosebumps right now because I just remember, finding and working with, a supplier, going down to kind of the downtown area, the Main Street area. And it was sad, honestly, because you'd see a little store, a little shop, and you'd see more for lease than open for business, more spots open, for lease signs. But you could also see, I saw from my own eyes, a year, maybe 2, year 3, a new cafe open, maybe a new hair salon would open. But you saw in the economic revitalization in the town, you would hear from people that I can find a job in my hometown. Young people did not have to leave to find work. They could find work, a good, safe paying job in their own hometown. So a combination of all that, when there was an opening on the sustainability team in IKEA supply chain, I jumped for it. I'm like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. So that kind of kicked me off on all of this. What about you, Erika? How did you get into this?
I remember when I was in business school 15 years ago, joining our net impact organization that was, interested in sustainability, wanted to see how that intersect with business. Obviously, it was very clear that climate change was an issue, but it wasn't super clear to me what career opportunities were in the space. I ended up being really interested in the energy sector and just how it touches every person on the entire planet. Our lives are so impacted by availability and cost of energy. And I also thought, if I work at a huge emitter like that, and any steps that we do, even 0.5% change in the way we operate, has a huge climate impact. So I joined a big oil and gas major and really worked in sustainable places within the business and looked for opportunities to make the business case for sustainability. And often that was because we were based in California. It was the compliance markets here, the low carbon fuel standard, the federal policies for renewable fuel blending requirements that created incentives and opportunities. So those price signals, Anna, that you were talking about, that really drives business to invest in different opportunities. And in this case, it was renewable fuels. So I got to go out to dairies and fuel terminals and eventually ethanol plants and also refineries. And then I moved into carbon capture and storage and just saw how much the energy transition was accelerating and how I wanted to help move it along, right? And just continue the impact that I was having with my career, and joined Climeco about 3 years ago to continue that and accelerate. So it's been so cool to see how the energy transition has accelerated, evolved, and expanded a lot. And those price signals in the marketplace have been driven by voluntary, goals. Companies saying they wanted to reduce their footprint, have a climate target or a net zero target, and governments creating incentives for reduction. So in the European Union, right, that's a price on carbon. In the US, we don't really have a price on carbon. Some states like California, Washington, others do, but it's more creating those incentives with the Inflation Reduction Act under the Biden administration and the bipartisan infrastructure bill that created a lot of carrots, a lot of incentives for emissions reductions and adding more clean energy to our landscape and to the energy mix in the U.S. So excited to be continuing that and helping our customers identify those opportunities to reduce emissions and be more competitive and more profitable because of it.
So here's a question. If there's someone who's interested in a career in sustainability, what are one or two recommendations you would give that person if they're just on the beginning of their journey and they're curious about this and they know they want to do something, they just don't know what?
Listen to our podcast, Amanda, right?
Yes.
I think learn as much as you can, be curious. And I feel like a fun thing about our podcast is we cover so many different industries and topics and ways that sustainability intersects with business, that you really get some perspectives on where there could be opportunities. But I feel like there's sustainability roles wherever you are. And it can, as you were saying, Amanda, your role isn't always that in your sustainability may not be in your title, but there are ways that you can incorporate that into the way you work and the company that you work for.
Anna, what about you? What would you recommend?
No, so that was a little bit what I was thinking as well when Erika even said, how she tried to push sustainability in her role. And this is something that we talked about the other day, Amanda, that I think sustainability will really touch upon everybody's roles and really going from that niche field to really be part of everyone's way of working and operating. But I do also, I really think looking at my own way of kind of segueing and moving into different careers, don't be afraid to take chances, right? I think there's a lot of opportunities out there, and one shouldn't be afraid to actually make the jump and see, because you can also use a lot of your own experience that you have already, like what we mentioned, and bring that into the role from a business perspective, from a trading perspective. So what you have already in your career can really be turned in a favorable way to a sustainability role. But yeah, I think it's really, if things go wrong, you can always leave. And then also what I find, when things go wrong, you will always have met a lot of good people in your career that can help you along the way, lean on these mentors and supporters that you have come across. Normally they will be able to give you a good feedback and also help you to maybe the next role or the next move that you want to. So don't be afraid to reach out.
I echo that sentiment too. I feel like the sustainability professionals are a very collaborative group. I think it's rare that I've ever met anyone who just didn't want to talk about sustainability in some aspect. Maybe they had a different niche than I do, but I felt like always curious and generally wanting to understand, what are you doing? What are you working on? Ooh, I want to learn from that. Let me share what I'm doing and try to find ways to collaborate. I think what we're trying for is such a massive challenge that we realize that no one person or company or government can do it alone, that we have to do it together. So I've always found this community very, very open to just, and introductions and meeting and learning from each other.
Yeah, there are a lot of coalitions, right? Broad coalitions and niche coalitions, first movers coalition, buyers associations, all of this that are trying to find ways to build momentum and be successful together because it's such a huge challenge. So I totally agree with what you were saying, Amanda.
So I think any way that anyone who's interested could get just involved, whether it's maybe a sustainability initiative at where you're working or at your college, or maybe there's a local meetup or a local group. Just start going, start talking to people, start following them on social, whatever it is, right? Just don't be afraid to make that first step. Most likely they'll be really friendly folks. See where it takes you.
Absolutely. Amanda, were there some topics that you were thinking about, you were looking forward to exploring in 2025?
I think one red thread that I've been thinking about is the rise of consumer power, consumer interest in sustainability, and how brands can build trust with consumers. And I have some ideas of how I want to explore that, but really how we can use sustainability to build trust, better communicate with consumers who I think are very interested and are a very powerful stakeholder in all of this that sometimes we don't talk enough about. So that's something I'm interested in exploring. What about you?
I think similar to that, because we're in the U.S., you and I think there's going to be some, limits on corporate engagement on sustainability, or at least, ESG as being maybe a hot button word or term. It seems like the switch from a company's goals to being able to deliver lower carbon products and putting the power into the hands of the consumer is going to be a valuable tool. And, as a consumer myself, I think I don't always see, clearly what are the more sustainable products available to me, especially, if I'm in the grocery store or a shop, it's not clear to me that these are more sustainable, greener, recyclable in my local community. So making that clear and seeing how folks continue to demand impact and demand accountability will be very, very interesting in the next 4-year term. Anna, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm, as you can imagine, out here, there are quick movements now after what we saw at COP in Baku. So we basically have a little bit more clarity around how we can trade carbon credits and how we can see these markets now develop under the big global umbrella of the Paris Agreement. With Singapore, as we have been discussing during the podcast, having a carbon tax. We have companies here in Singapore now waiting to see if there will be any eligible carbon credits that they can use under the carbon tax. And they will have to hand in these credits by mid-year 2025. So all eyes on that here in Singapore. And just in general, I think how we can trade between countries so that we can limit the cost of tackling climate change on a global scale. So that's something that I will really be interested in seeing how it works. And then what we will also see, of course, are more regulation coming out from the EU. So European Union will put even more emphasis on the carbon border adjustment mechanism that will also have an impact on Asia and Southeast Asian countries, because we supply, of course, a lot of products into the EU. So those are, I think, the key things for me. Of course, consumer impact is something that I would love to explore more here in Asia. It feels like the market is not that mature yet, so people are prioritizing different things still. But hopefully that's something that we will be able to speed up out here as well in Asia, that we will get more awareness of the power, like you said, that the consumer has in making this rapid transition that we need to a greener economy. So yeah, a lot of things for 2025.
When you were talking about enjoying the commodity markets and pricing and price on carbon, it's funny because there isn't one clear price on carbon. So when we're looking at that, there's voluntary markets, there's different types of credits in the voluntary market. Then there's compliance markets, but they're in all these different countries. They have all these different price signals. So it is a very complex market. And I'm always interested to see how those evolve and how those impact the carbon projects that we develop here at ClimeCo. So I totally agree with that interest as well.
Yeah, it's not going to be one price of carbon, I think. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to not have one price of carbon, because we're all in so different jurisdictions with different regulation, exactly what you mentioned. There will have to be various ways that companies can have we need to give them a lot of different tools, and those tools will have different prices. So I agree with you, Erika. I think it's a complex world with not having just one price of carbon, which is something that I know, for example, the International Maritime Organization and some of the shipping companies would like to see one global price. But I think that's when we need to remember that all these countries come from a very different background, and some are very already industrialized, as the US, Europe, and others. Whereas, of course, many of these countries that we're dealing with, and especially again out here in Southeast Asia, they have different priorities. They are just embarking on their growth path and really showing impressive growth figures as we speak. It wouldn't necessarily be fair on those countries to have exactly the same price that we would have in Europe or in the US. So yeah, that it's a fascinating landscape.
And I would say, listeners, if there's something that you're curious about, you want to hear more about that we didn't tease up here, or, are looking into right now, just go to climeco.com and then contact us page and put your suggestion there. What do you want to hear more about? Let us know. We want to hear from you too.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear. So lots of exciting things to look forward to in 2025. And Anna, welcome formally to the podcast. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a host with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of interesting guests along the way and conversations. So we hope our listeners stay tuned and have a great holiday season and a happy new year. And we'll talk to you in 2025.
Thank you, Erika. Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks, Anna. Whether you're a seasoned ESG practitioner or embarking on your sustainability journey, ESG Decoded is your trusted source for inspiration and actionable insights for responsible business practices. Subscribe on your favorite streaming platforms to be notified of new episodes drop bi-weekly on Tuesday mornings, and connect with us at ESG Decoded on social media or by visiting www.climeco.com.